Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I am your host, Gable Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And welcome to another author interview. My guest today is a self published young adult fantasy author. From kindergarten to senior year, my guest wrote stories everywhere but never finished. She loved to have very detailed daydreams where everything still had to make sense and follow a plot line with explanations, even though it was in her head. She wrote Insignia, her novel, as a short story when she was 21 and left it on years. At age 25, she was bored working on the graveyard and started turning it into a novel, which became a series as she discovered writing is her passion, and putting the story in her head down on paper for others to read is what she enjoys doing. She was raised in Southern California and has lived in Washington State for 9 years. She is a huge fan of medieval times and Renaissance fairs. She has a TikTok and Instagram account that showcases her character art for her book, and she dresses up as a fictional villain, though not related to her stories, but has her own backstory nonetheless. And to tell us more about her book and her process as an author and journey, let's give a huge round of applause to a first timer on the show, author Kelsea Koops. Kelsea, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi. I'm obviously a little nervous.
No worry, it's okay. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. So, Kelsea, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Is there anything more you'd like to tell the viewers about your background as an author, as well as a little intro of your book, Insignia?
As background as an author, I'm self-published. I tried to do an indie publisher in town, but then I realized I was a bit of a control freak. And
Oh, okay.
I was like, hey, I made this book, so I wrote it. I had it formatted, I had it edited, I designed the covers. What is your purpose other than push and submit? Because I can do that too. So me and the me and the indie publisher, we had a mutual little like breakup. We're just like, yes, we both agree that we should separate because he didn't like that I was constantly like, let's do this, let's do. I was basically bossing him around.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
the boss, not him. So he's like, I agree. You should probably go. And I was like, I should probably go. But now I'm self-published. So I do everything. I designed the covers, I designed the interior, I format it myself. The only thing I don't do is I hire an editor because
Right.
you get blinded to your own work and you skip a bunch of stuff. And I'm not the best with grammar. So I have somebody else
Okay.
come in and nitpick all those things for me. But I do everything else, and upload it and market it, and it's busy.
Ah, dang. So,
Yeah.
what can you tell us about Insignia for those who haven't read it online or seen your posts on social media?
So it's a very, what's the word? Controlling word. A control. I'm blanking on oppressive society. There we go. That's the word. Oppressive society where you can't choose your career. It's just you're born into something simple as being a baker, like the main character, and it's
Mm.
tattooed onto your arm, which is why I have a quill because I chose scribe for myself.
Ooh,
It's tattooed
nice.
on your arm at the age of 10. And then you cannot change, and it's so strict of a rule that if you try to change it, you're killed. You're hung to keep like it that systematic and that in order. And then there's a army made of winged riders on dragon back and stuff. So our main character doesn't want to be part of a bakery business. He wants to fly dragons, but he has no interest in like becoming a hero or anything. It's more of survival. And then your secondary main character is born into the winged cavalry, the stuff like that.
Mm.
So he, as your protagonist, is just trying to learn how to be himself, learn to live life. And then she learns how the world isn't as great as she was raised to be because she was taught like this is how it is and this is all she knows. And then she's like, wait a minute, it's not so bad. Isn't such a great place to live in. And so my friend pointed out, like, the first book is real nice and fluffy because you got the intro and the world building, the characters and their meeting. And then the other books is just watch my characters fall apart mentally.
Oh
They start,
no.
they start to go through all these hardships and trauma. And I don't like when in books, like, characters go through these horrible events and then they're like, this is fine. I totally survived this and did not take any mental damage or physical damage. No, my characters, it eats at them and they have trauma and
Mm.
they can't figure out how to live through it, but they live in the medieval times. So mental health is not a real study back then. So they have no one how to help them. They don't understand why they're not afraid of being in public and stuff. So you watch the characters kind of fall apart mentally and unable to handle it throughout the series.
Wow.
They do obviously fight and do all that kind of stuff, but they handle it with, I guess, realism, how you would be as a real person.
Dang,
Yeah,
that is some tough material for like a young adult like novel, but that kind of leads into like the next two questions, which is for you, Kelsey, as a young adult fantasy author writing this complex story, which these themes, could be very adult, but then since this is a young adult series, what is sort of the need or desire you want to satisfy for your readers, as well as the promise you're making to them when they pick up this book?
I look at my notes. Oh yeah, so it looks like my notes. I wrote the whole realistic characters, like some people you can like relate to. Like my main character develops a stage fright. He gets nervous around public, and so I took those from like my real experiences. Like right now, I'm kind of shaken. So he taps his foot and he gets nervous and he stutters and he can't look at the crowd. So like can relate more to the characters because they're not this like, oh, like overpowered person. There's no destinies and what's the oh there's no like no destinies. There's no instant love. There's no like quick healing. All these characters have to go through like real like long term. Like so they get hurt. I googled how long does it take for a bruise to heal or a burn to heal. So that throughout the series, it takes a couple weeks for stuff to heal and stuff, and then the love is always it's all slow burn. Like it's friends who fall in love and stuff. So there's no like I saw them and I knew I was with them, and same with like the no destinies. My main character is like it's not my destiny to save the world. He's just like I'm just trying to survive. Hey guys.
Wow.
I guess like they're I guess relatable more because they're just regular people thrown into this situation that they have no clue how to handle.
Dang. So would you that kind of almost say like your like promise your readers that these characters are going to be very relatable, very believable, and that even though this is a fantasy setting, you're going to identify with these characters because, oh my gosh, I've been in a similar situation like this, or I've met someone, or I've seen someone who's gone through something similar.
Yeah, like, oh, I know what it's like to be scared on stage. Oh, I know what it's like to be in love with my friend and I don't know how to tell her because I don't want to ruin the friendship. Or even some like it touches on the topics of like grief and loss. I have like characters that have I don't know how to say this, like issues, like I don't ever diagnose it with anything, but there's like some characters that display depression and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all kinds of people that each like people can relate to of all kinds. It's cold in
Wow.
the sorry, I'm shivering.
No,
I,
no, it's okay. Yeah, but that is actually really, really powerful, really, really true. And I always enjoy characters and books and stories that are very organic, very authentic to the world that they live in, that they actually feel that they belong. And that
yep,
shows growth as, a writer honing their craft. And kind of leading into that, so in the introduction, we learned that Insignia started off as a series of short stories, and even before that, it was in your head. You were constantly thinking about this story. So, when you decide to make the decision, I'm going to write this story, I'm going to edit, I'm going to get a cover artist, I'm going to do all the stuff and publish it, what was the initial feedback that you got? Was it positive? Was it negative? Or was it a mixed bag?
So it's like feedback from people like I know personally. Is that way it's like
Yes.
interest, like my friends, like, oh, they all wanted to read it. They all wanted to know like the updates. I've obviously like my parents have read it, my in-laws have read it. My best friend and I, we go to the woods and that's where we do our proofreading. We sit at a campfire with nobody around because
Nice.
we have like our secret spots out in the mountains that we like to go to. And we sit there and then I probably read my book 20 times. And so we would sit there and read, depending on which book I'm on. We'd sit there and just read over and over and over. I gotta turn the heat on in this house. I'm in like the basement of my house is where I have like my little nerd room, and it's really cold in here. And I just realized that.
Oh man, but that's actually really cool. You have like a good group of like people that really really enjoy your stories and are like really supportive. And now for like readers who have just like seen this for the first time, is there any particular review that you've gotten like on like Amazon or Barnes and Noble that have really stuck with you? And it could be like positive or like negative critique. What review really stands out to you when you first announced Insignia and actually published it in the indie world?
Um, I haven't had too many reviews that haven't like known. Like my editor left one, and then one of my best friends, she left one. I've only had one review. It wasn't somebody I known. It was this nice long out like her description of everybody and how she says she relates more to Amiria, the female main character, versus the male who's Sterling, who's the actual male lead, because he knows what he wants and he has like his desire of where he wants to be. Whereas in the girl, she was taught this is how to be, how to grow up, but now she's having internal conflicts of like, this is not what I've learned. This is what I actually want to be. Now she doesn't know how to handle herself, what to do, and she's kind of more in a confused discovering who she is. And so the person talked about how they related to her. That's the only review that I've ever had. So I guess it stuck to me because that was my only one. Other than my good friend who made the comment of how she's the one that told me how the first book started out so fluffy and nice. She's like, this is gonna be a nice, fun read. And then she goes through the series and it just got, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh God, oh God, why? It's just that one stuck with me because I didn't realize just how dark it got towards like the end of the
Right.
third. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I guess it was
Man.
just my self coming out towards the end.
But it's good that you've gotten those reviews because those are really, really powerful and empowering for any author. And then looking at those reviews from like friends and family and people who have seen this book for the first time as a new reader, do you feel that your promise has been validated based on those reviews from family and friends?
Um, oh, like the problem with them connecting to people.
Yeah, like when you initially created the promise you set
Yeah,
out when writing this book, do you feel that it's been honored in the comments from your family and friends who have read it?
yeah, because each person can relate to a different or like character. So like that lady says she relates more to Amelia and Sterling, but then I've had some of my friends, she doesn't exactly agree with it, but she matches one of my characters, Eve, because she's my cheerleader, and
Right.
that's the character who's the cheerleader kind of for the main characters. And then I match one of my characters, Quillen. I don't want to admit to it because he's very a depressing character, but so everybody has like a character that they personally relate to because each character is so different in their personalities. So it has been validated that I was like, I relate to this one. I relate to this one. I've had two of my coworkers. One likes the main character. One
Mm-hmm.
doesn't think he's a bad main character, but he doesn't relate to him. So, and then the other one does. He's when there's parts of it where the main character's heart is kind of broken. He's like, that's exactly what I felt when that happened to me with one of my exes. So the
Mm.
person can relate to a different point of the story or a different each character, and that's why it's nice to have like nice diverse cast.
Nice. That's actually really, really cool. And I actually like that answer because it is very, very true. I like when people can resonate with like certain different characters, like different aspects of the story. And that's ultimately like the best thing that any author could hope for. And now, speaking of the book itself, now reading from your bio that you had this idea in your head and then you put it away for a good while before you decide to make the decision to publish it and write into a full novel and then a series. Now, the question I'm going to ask you, Kelsea, is probably a very, I won't say difficult one, but it's really a reflection. So, as you would definitely agree, Kelsea, writing a novel is a very lonely and painstaking process. You spend hours and hours writing, editing, revisions, speaking with your editor saying this needs to be changed or this needs to be taken out, find the right cover artist, and definitely formatting the book into a way that you want it to be. And sometimes it can be very deflating and have this sense of imposter syndrome where it's like,
Oh,
am I really going to be doing this or am I really going to actually put it out there? I don't know if it's going to resonate. I don't know if it's going to be good. But sometimes we have to persevere and push through because this is our passion project. So for you, Kelsea, what has disciplined you to not only publish Insignia, but also publish the other books in this series?
the imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah.
There's so many times where like, so I like to write my book while I'm at work. That's I work the graveyard shift for a reason. And so in the middle of the night when all of my tasks are done, I sit there and I've noticed there's certain times when I don't have my coworkers near me and I get all my thoughts going, I start to get the imposter syndrome. The why am I doing this? I've had one book sale in 30 days. My TikTok is not maybe not getting enough views. And I start to ask, my friend gets these long messages of me just going down this little spiral of what's the point? I'm not, why even do this? But then she tells me how much she loves my books. I said she's my little cheerleader and how she thinks they're amazing. I'm all like, well, even though like I don't have sales, I do have like, I have, it's actually hanging up in my room. I have two little uh, fan arts. And I remember
Ooh,
when I got
nice.
those, I cried because that's why I write. I want I want fan art, I want fan fiction. Like it's not about the sales, it's about like I want my story to be out there and I want to talk to people about my characters and my role because that's all I love the past 6 years. I've been stuck in this little world and I want to talk to people about it because it's all I know anymore. So yeah, I want pictures of my characters and I want to talk about my characters. I want people to like my characters. So that's what keeps me going. I look at the little drawings. Actually, I'll grab it.
Ooh, nice.
There's this one. That's one. That's of the dragon Ignis.
Ooh,
And then another one in person. They did acrylic or something, and then they sent me a picture of it. So yeah,
nice.
these motivate me to keep going. I love these things so much.
I would definitely say this, Kelsey. You're probably the first guest I've had on the show that have actually not only mentioned fan art of their stories, but has actually gotten like pictures of the
Yeah.
fan art as a motivation. That is really, really awesome and really cool. I actually like that picture a lot. That's actually really, really nice whoever made
Yeah.
that.
Um, they follow me on Instagram. They've done this one, and then they've done the main character Sterling too, which I had it as my phone lock screen for the longest time. So I got a new phone, and I haven't re-put it back on there yet.
Nice, nice. And going back also to your book, what would you definitely say are like the authors that have really motivated you or at least mold you into finding your authorial voice? Because a huge thing for any author is if we're going to write in a specific genre, it's always best to read books of that genre. Like I love
I was
historical
gonna say,
fiction and
all of
fantasy.
these, all of these books behind me are probably YA fantasy. Most, yeah, most of those, all the books.
Oh, nice. Okay,
All,
you maybe. Oh, that's nice. Okay, you maybe number two in terms of like best bookshelves I've had on the show. I had one guest had a whole row. You may be tied for second because that is an
Yeah.
amazing bookshelf, I must say.
Oh, it's like, so there's clouds. Does that actually lights up LED like a storm cloud?
Oh,
I turn it on
wow. So
and
all those
spend a lot of
books,
time making it.
wow. So all those books right behind you, you would definitely say are like some like the big motivators and like sort of inspirations for your story.
My favorite author is gonna be Marissa Meyer. She's got this huge section over here. Oh,
Ooh, okay. Very nice. Very, very nice.
I've even like wrote a letter to her before, but like she was my study guide on how to write because I loved how when I read her books, how seamless it is for me to slip into the world and then just imagine the world. Like there's some books I feel like I end up reading the words, but my brain just can't picture it, or I have to struggle, or it's kind of in and out. Hers, I'll forget that I'm reading, and it's just
Mm.
like the movies playing in my head because she does so well with the description and the emotions of the characters that I just get lost into it. So that's why, yeah, she's my study guide. I basically model off of her.
Awesome. That's actually really, really cool. I've never heard of that author, and that's the reason why I love doing these author interviews because I
Yeah,
know authors who know people that I don't know of, and I get to check them out, which is amazing. And now, Kelsey, we come to more of the business side of being an indie author.
got
So, when you decided to go down the indie publishing route, what was sort of like the things that you found sort of like as a challenge for like any indie author? Because I definitely feel, yes, going down the indie path, you do have more creative control over your story as opposed to traditionally publishing, which in some regards, yes, they have a larger audience and a larger following, but as a business model, if your book doesn't sell, then they will cut you. And that is unfortunately the bad truth. So, what are some things you've learned about the business of being an indie author?
it's really hard because you have to be
Yes, that
you're
is
your
true.
own marketer. I don't know. I don't have a degree in marketing. Like that's something people study and they go to school for, and I have no clue how to do it. So that's why I have like a TikTok and I just put my art on there and hope for the best. Like I don't know how to make advertisements and stuff. And then
Mm,
you have to also writers are writers for a reason. We're introverts. We don't want to go out into public, but I have to go into public and ask stores to put my book in there. I have two because that's all I got the courage to do, and then I
mm.
got scared to do the others, and I've been denied by Barnes and Noble three times so far. But
Ooh, wow.
I gotten sign. I don't. Yeah, I gotten signings. I do signings at my local one. They allow you like two or once a year. So I'm about to have my third signing in July. But I was like, I sell all my books whenever I'm there. They sell out. And then I emailed the Barnes and Noble and be like, hey, I sold all the books at my signing, and they're like, we'll consider you never. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Thanks. Wonderful.
Wow. Dang. But yeah, that is true. It's a lot of work because as you point out, you have to do your own marketing, you have to find your own cover artist, you have to find your own editor. It's a lot of out of pocket. And I
Yeah,
definitely feel the marketing is probably the biggest thing for all indie authors. Like that's probably the
yeah.
biggest struggle is marketing.
Yeah, because editing was well not easy. I hired somebody, so that part was easy. It was like I found a girl who matched the style I wanted, and she helps with.
Hmm.
She's like a history major, so she finds inconsistency in my medieval
Ooh,
history.
okay.
Or so that's why like I learned how to format and I designed my own cover because that cut the cost. That cut the cost, and then that's something I can do. I'm just on the computer and doing my digital art. It's yeah, but the marketing having to go out and like tell people like you should put my book in the stores. Like why? I don't know why. Because it's pretty. I don't know.
I know the exact same thing. I've tried to do the exact same thing. It is not easy. It is a hustle, if anything else. And I also definitely feel for any indie author, another thing to also consider is the audience. And I definitely feel that's another thing too that a lot of indie authors, especially starting out, don't really consider is the audience that they want. So for you, Kelsey, in your own opinion, how important is it to recognize your audience when writing a book, especially if it's young adult fantasy?
I guess like I didn't write with any audience in mind. It's just I wrote the book that was in my head, and if people like it, then they're my audience. Like I just like I didn't really I don't really care. Not like I don't care. Like I don't mind who it is. If they like my book, then I like them. Then we can be friends. So I'm totally okay with everybody liking my book. I'm not okay with it. Nobody liking my book though. That'd be really disheartening.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I didn't really have an audience in mind. It's just whoever wants to read it. I'm glad you're here.
Nice. So it's almost like you wrote this book in the sense that this is a book that you would have wanted to read growing up, as opposed to
Yeah.
I'm writing this book for a audience in mind, where it's like either like young adult fantasy readers or fantasy readers or young adult readers. You're just writing this because this is a book you wish you had growing up,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. It's the book I wanted to read. It's the book that was in my head, and so I decided to just put it out there and see who else wants to read it.
Nice. Very, very nice. And kind of leading into that, probably another very serious question, which I've started asking this because it's really, really true, and I love their discussions. So here's a little context for this. I guess I had a long time ago on the show. He talked about one of the biggest lies, or the biggest lies that any indie author could believe is that their book is going to be their debut book specifically is going to be the start of their legacy. 9 times out of 10, that may not work. Some are very fortunate to have their debut novel be the start of their legacy as an author. Other times it's not. And that can also be disheartening and bring about that sense of imposter syndrome that your book didn't resonate. But as she expressed to me, that also should motivate the author to keep writing and hone your craft. Because when you do write the book that establishes who you are, you can then tell your audience, hey, if you like this book, check out my first one. And I guess sort of the question that I'm asking you, Kelsey, is in your opinion, how important is it for indie authors to understand that there is no certain guarantee that your debut novel, debut book is going to be the one that people will remember you for?
This is fairly important. It would kind of like break your heart if nobody ever reads your debut book and that was like your little baby for a long time. But then
Mm-hmm.
you move on. Like I've been I've been with this series for 6 years, but I have other books that are in line. I just never got to them because my standalone book went into 3 books, and then I decided to write like it's not spin-offs, but like other parts of that same world. I kept branching
Oh, okay.
the 3.5 book, which is the that I'm working on, which is the behind the scenes of what's going on during the series. Because there's a lot of like stuff that's happening in the 3rd book, but you're like, but why? Why is he doing that? Who's this? And why? But the 3.5 is following these guards instead of the main character, so you can find out what's going on. And then I have a bunch of short stories I want to write because there's things, but I remember I'm getting off topic. I like to ramble. I remember I was talking to one of our local celebrity authors here, and
Mm-hmm.
he's a self-published indie author. And I asked because he has his mystery novels are being #1 on Amazon. He's in all the stores here, and he's getting into like the newspapers and stuff. I asked him like, how did you do it? He's like, I've been doing this for 8 years. He's like, it took me 8 years of writing different books, and then finally, because he wrote all his mysteries take place local. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's tough because everybody wanted to read, oh, a mystery that happened in my town. That sounds fun. So it took off, and then now he has a bunch of same. It's all mysteries in the local Pacific Northwest in this area. And so, but he's like you just keep writing, and one day maybe you'll finally like you'll hit the right book or the right audience and it'll take off. I was like, okay, I'll be patient because I've only had my book out for about 2 years. And so I was like, I can be patient and just keep trying.
I know the exact same feeling. My debut book, The Gathering, it's only been out for literally a year, and I'm constantly writing, constantly, as you said, just writing and trying to be patient. And it is a passion project, and it does deflate when people don't read your book or you don't have the large audience that you were expecting. But as
Yeah.
long as you have like even like a small group of people that really enjoy your book, then at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Because if you have a small, loyal following of people that really enjoy your story, then you're going to be absolutely fine. And if
Yeah.
they make fan art for you, that's also a big motivator to continue writing. Which then leads to the next question, Kelsey, which for you, looking back to your life as an author and your books, how different would it be had you not written this series? How different would your life be?
Work would be really boring. I guess I would have just have read more books at work because then it wouldn't be drastically different. I wouldn't have social media. Like I didn't have social media until I published the book because
Oh, okay.
I didn't find the interest in people needing to know what I'm doing. Like I'm having fun. I don't need to post about it. But now that I have the book, I post about the the book or my little TikTok character to try to now make like a name for myself. So that
Hmm.
would be drastically different because I wouldn't have to be worrying about posting every day and doing all this stuff. But I have fun. It's fun running around and I wear armor and I run around in the woods. So I don't mind it. It's fun. Um, and then yeah, so it wouldn't be too much different. Like my friend and I will just be doing something else. We'll be hanging out in the woods and we talk about something else, or I guess. But I think I would still have all those stories just like itching in my mind. So that would be something different. Like instead of writing down on the stories and having these characters that I now love, they would just be in my head. And I guess it probably would nag at me until I eventually wrote them down.
Nice. That's actually, I 100% agree with everything you said. Like, if we didn't write our stories down, they would just exist in our head, and we would always have
Yeah.
this sense of like, could I have actually written this? Could I have actually tried this? And it's always good to get it down on paper. Like, even if going back to the sense of imposter syndrome and putting it out there for the world, even if it doesn't get the audience that we expect or we imagine, we put something together. We put a passion down on paper. It exists in the world for people to find and enjoy. And even like as our friends and family who read and enjoy it, that's a huge accomplishment
Yeah.
nonetheless. Which then leads into the next two questions, which is for you, Kelsey. You've mentioned them before in the beginning, but who have been your biggest supporters as an author, and have you ever gotten a sense of validation from other indie authors on social media like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and so forth, who have read your book and have said, this is really good. I really enjoyed this? Because it's one thing to write a book and present it to the indie community, the indie world. It's another thing entirely for another indie author to find your book, read it, and message you and saying, this is amazing. This is where you belong.
Trying to think of some. I've had indie writers. I had one we swapped books to do a review for review. Neither of us had finished the other book, but I had posted about having like a little imposter syndrome one time and how I was freaking out that like maybe my story's boring or this or that. And then he commented, I can confirm that it is not boring because he was reading it. I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Or how my editor, she's this is her series right here. My editor, Belle Manuel, she
Ooh, very nice.
so she told about my series that she enjoyed it. Not only is she being paid to read it, but she enjoyed my series. So when I come back to her for the next one, she's excited to get back into the characters and find out where they go. And she also gets to help, put an input into directing them and this and that. And so those are two indie writers that I've had, I guess, commentate how they enjoy my stories.
That's awesome. And is there anyone else you like to shout out who have been like really huge supporters, friends, family,
Oh,
fellow writers in your community?
so definitely, obviously, my friend Sophie, the one that goes camping with me, because I have characters dedicated just to her. That's how much of a big mouth she has. She has her own characters that were just supposed to be little goons, and now they have their own book 3.5. That's I've dedicated those to her as a thank you. I have one of my friends. She named my main character. I have they're all in my little like acknowledgments. My friend Jessica, she's read my whole series and she's like helped me, I guess, beta read. She's one of
Mm-hmm.
my biggest fans. And then said my parents, my husband, my in-laws, my father-in-law hasn't read a book in a long time. And he read my series and he absolutely loves it. He was like, I'll just read like a chapter or two. And then I read like half the book. And so that made me feel a little good to hear and stuff. So all my family, my friends have been super supportive.
That's amazing. And as I said before, it's always great to have a support group that really, really helps you because as authors, it's a very lonely business. We spend hours and hours working on projects, late nights, editing, trying to talk with our editors, trying to find people to make covers for our book, and then marketing it like it's nobody's business. And it's exhausting sometimes. And I keep going back to this again of like imposter syndrome and wondering if we're going to have breakdowns. But it's always good to have that support group because with them, they can keep you grounded. They can help you recollect your thoughts, gather, okay, just calm down, take a breather, just step back and just don't write. Just take a few days and don't write and just reflect because you'll be able to look at it in clearer eyes. And I honestly think that is really, really important to have for any author. And I guess sort of like the last question for this interview, Kelsea, is probably a big one, probably one of the most important ones, which is what is your word of wisdom to other indie authors or people who want to jump into this industry and write their book?
I don't know if I should be giving words of wisdom when I'm still struggling myself.
Hey, any words of wisdom that you have, anything, you could be like, just be passionate about your project or just keep going. Anything that you've learned in your own experiences, what would you like to share it with the listeners and fellow writers out there?
Just didn't stop. So like I've spent 6 years and I'm one of those people, I have all kinds of crafts in this room because I'd be like, I want to learn how to sew. And I buy fabric and then I never sew. So I have so many of those where I just start, quit, start, quit, start, quit. That's why I started writing this series, which I know my brain was like, oh, we should write this book and this book and this book. I went, no, no, no. We're gonna stick to this series. And then I did it somehow 6 years later. I'm now so obsessed with writing the series that I keep writing more and more, but I've stuck to it. I kept all the other books from coming into my brain and just kind of stayed with it. So I guess the word of advice is dedication. You can't just half-ass it, otherwise you're never going to get it done. And so you got to start and you just got to keep going. Even if you have to take breaks, like I said, I write while I'm at work, but I take my weekends off. I don't write on my weekends. I
Mm-hmm.
do fun stuff to keep my brain fresh. Or I've even taken break from writing by writing. I'd be like, here's the real story. Let me go write a little fan fiction of my characters because I'm having a little block on writing block on the scene. Let me just go write something that has completely nothing to do with the actual book, and I'll just write this little random scene over here just for me to kind of get my creative juices flowing again. So I said it's all about just kind of keep going, even if you do have the mental breakdowns. I call them like the monthly mental breakdowns, where you're just like, this is pointless. But then I said, my friend, she says, no, I want to keep reading your stories. And I'm like, okay. She literally say, do it for me. And I'm like, you're lucky. I love you so much. And then I do it.
Awesome. And that's probably like the truest ultimate thing is that just keep doing it. Just keep writing. It can be like a few pages here, a few sentences here. Just keep writing because if you just keep writing, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to be fine. And we have now arrived at the end of this amazing interview. I want to give a huge thanks to our guest, Kelsey Koops, for joining us today. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us. And
You're
where can people find and engage with you to know more about your book, anything upcoming in the future, or just to talk with you on social media?
I have a TikTok, Kelsey Koops, I think it's underscore author, Instagram, Kelsey Koops author. I have a website, kelseykoops.com. So that's, as long as you spell my name right, pretty easy to find. Um, even like I'm even on Discord. There's a link on my TikTok for like a Discord where anybody can come chat with me. I'm usually have my phone on hand unless I'm in work. Then I well, actually no, I probably talk to most when I'm in work because then I just log into the computer. I'm usually the most talkative in the middle of the night because I'm graveyard and got not much to do. But I'm always willing to just respond. I like chatting with people. So I have a lot of fun with people in there talking. I'll post like random things like I went to a waterfall yesterday to go film. So I was like, here's a little picture of me at the waterfall and stuff.
Nice. I'll link all those down below in the description of this video, as well as the links to Kelsey's books. I urge you all to go and check them out. I purchased my copy. It's in my long list of books I need to get to,
Yeah.
but I read the intro on Barnes & Noble. I'm not going to spoil it because I'm saving it for a special episode. So please, as fellow authors all around who watch my content, let's support our fellow author, Kelsey Koops, and help blow up her books and just
Yeah.
spread the word. And with that, listeners, this concludes this amazing interview. Again, I want to give a huge thanks to our guest, Kelsey, for coming out. Kelsey, thank you so much again for coming on the show and allowing us to glimpse your world as an author, as well as your work insignia and the future works coming soon.
Well, I zoned out.
Oh, it's okay. I was just saying thank you for for joining us.
It went away.
this, oh man, this is probably the best episode I've had so far.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
just thank you for joining us today, and just thank you just being just like a amazing guest on the show. This has really just made my day thus far.
Thank you. I had fun. I got a little past my nerves. Mostly to just shiver the whole time. I really got to turn my heat on.
All right. And listeners, as always, make sure to comment down below, like and subscribe, and let us know what episode you've liked thus far and what you liked about this particular episode. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out.